Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. It's okay to start your day feeling uncertain, unsure, or even a little bit afraid. In fact, it's more than okay. It's human. We live in a world that tells us to keep it all together, to present the version of ourselves that we think others will approve of. But here's the truth: you don't need to hide who you are. You don't need to armor up before facing the day. Your imperfections, your struggles, your questions, they don't diminish you. They make you real. You don't have to be the strongest in the room. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't even have to feel confident all the time. What matters is that you show up. What matters is that you allow yourself to be seen in all your messy, complex, beautifully imperfect humanity. Today, give yourself permission to take up space, to be vulnerable, to ask for help when you need it, and to offer help when you can. Because here's the things that often make us feel weak, our vulnerability, our emotions, our uncertainty, are also the very things that make us powerful. It's in the moments we let ourselves be seen, even in our discomfort, that we find real connection, real courage. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to carry everything on your own. The people around you, your friends, your colleagues, even strangers, are all living their own versions of this same struggle. If you reach out, if you show up as yourself, you might just find that they're willing to do the same. So as you move into your day, I want you to remember that you're not here to perform. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to live, to be present, to embrace the full range of human experience. Today, let yourself be a little more vulnerable than you were yesterday. Let yourself be seen, flaws and all. It's not about having it all together. It's about showing up with courage, embracing the discomfort, and knowing that even when things don't go as planned, you are still enough. Before the hustle of your day begins, take a moment to pause. It's easy to get caught up in the rush of daily life, waking up to alarms, rushing through routines, and stepping straight into the demands of work, family, and responsibilities. We live in a world that often feels like it's moving too fast. But before you dive into that, give yourself permission to stop, to take a deep breath, to check in with yourself. You don't need to immediately jump into productivity mode. It's not a sign of weakness or laziness to take a moment for yourself. It's a necessity. You can't pour from an empty cup. Pausing isn't just about physically stopping, it's about mentally and emotionally preparing yourself for the day ahead. We all know the feeling of waking up and immediately feeling overwhelmed. Your mind starts racing with tasks, deadlines, and worries before your feet even hit the floor. That sense of urgency can flood your body and mind, and before long, you're already running on autopilot, reacting to the world instead of choosing how you want to engage with it. But what if, instead of letting the demands of the day consume you right away, you gave yourself permission to be present, just for a few minutes, to settle into your body, to notice how you feel physically, emotionally, mentally? Are you carrying tension in your shoulders? Is there a sense of excitement or dread in your chest? Are there thoughts of worry floating around in your mind, or maybe even a sense of gratitude for the chance to begin a new day? Whatever you're feeling is valid. It's okay to have mixed emotions or be unsure of how the day will unfold. This moment is an opportunity to acknowledge and honor what you're bringing into your day. Taking time to pause at the start of your day isn't about achieving some sort of inner calm or reaching a state of perfection. It's not about making everything feel right before you begin. It's simply about becoming aware. When we stop and pay attention to our feelings and our needs, we become better equipped to deal with what the day will bring. We can choose how to show up for ourselves, our work, and the people around us. When we move through our days without pausing to check in with ourselves, we lose the ability to choose. We become reactive, swept along by the noise of external demands. But when we pause, we reconnect with ourselves, and that gives us the clarity and strength to move forward with intention. It's about giving yourself the space to breathe before jumping into the rush. Just because the world is demanding your attention doesn't mean you have to comply without first acknowledging your own needs. Starting your day with a moment of reflection, no matter how brief, allows you to set the tone for the rest of the day. It's not about silencing the noise or trying to make everything perfect. It's about showing up for yourself, even if just for a few moments before the world asks you to show up for it. That simple act of pause can make all the difference in how you experience the day that follows. So before you start moving, just stop for a second. Take a breath. Notice how you're feeling. And in that space, remind yourself that you don't have to have everything figured out. The day will unfold as it will. But how you move through it aware, present, and intentional is something you have control over. That moment of pause is yours to claim. You are enough, just as you are. I know it's easy to forget that, especially in a world that constantly tells us we need to do more, be more, and have more in order to be worthy. We're bombarded by messages about what success looks like and what it takes to measure up. These messages tell us that we need to look a certain way, behave a certain way, and achieve certain milestones to prove our value. But here's the truth: your worth is not dependent on any of that. You do not need to be perfect to be deserving of love, respect, and happiness. It's a message that seems simple, but is often the hardest to accept. We tend to believe that if we're not excelling or reaching some ideal standard, we're falling short. We internalize these expectations, and they begin to define our sense of self-worth. It's as if we are only valuable when we are performing, achieving, or meeting some external benchmark. But the reality is that you are valuable now, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Think about the moments when you've shown up for others, even when you were feeling imperfect or uncertain. Perhaps you've offered a listening ear to a friend, shown compassion to a colleague, or simply been present for someone who needed you. In those moments, your value was not in what you accomplished or how polished you appeared. It was in your willingness to be human, to connect, to care. That's what makes you worthy. It's the everyday imperfect acts of being present, of being vulnerable, of being real. That's where your worth lies, not in some idealized version of yourself, but in the honest, imperfect, authentic you. We live in a world that tends to value results, appearances, and achievement above all else. We're constantly chasing the next goal, the next goal, the next success, the next thing that will validate us. But this cycle can leave us feeling drained, unfulfilled, and constantly questioning whether we're enough. The problem with tying our worth to external achievements is that it's fleeting. Success is temporary, and even when we reach a goal, it's often followed by the pressure to reach another, higher one. It can feel like we're always running on a treadmill that never stops, and no matter how much we achieve, it's never enough. This pursuit of more can cause us to lose sight of what we already have and who we already are. When we stop measuring our worth by external standards and begin recognizing it as inherent, something shifts. We stop searching for validation outside ourselves and begin to see that we are already whole. This doesn't mean we stop striving or growing. It simply means that we don't have to earn our right to belong or to take up space. You don't have to perform to be worthy. You are worthy right now, just as you are, with all your imperfections and quirks, your strengths and vulnerabilities. Your worth is not determined by what you do. It's intrinsic to who you are. So when you wake up in the morning and face the challenges of the day, remind yourself of this simple truth: you are enough. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to earn your right to exist. You already belong. You already matter. And you are worthy of love, respect, and all the good things that life has to offer. Not because of what you achieve today, but because of the person you already are. We often think that in order to succeed, we have to be confident all the time, to always have the answers, to always be the one who knows exactly what to do next. We believe that if we show any sign of uncertainty, it means we're failing or not measuring up. But the truth is, it's okay to not have it all figured out. In fact, it's more than okay, it's human. It's a natural part of the process. We live in a world that is constantly changing, and no one can predict everything that will come their way. You don't have to have every single piece of the puzzle in place to begin. The journey itself will help you find your way, and often the uncertainty is where the growth happens. It's easy to be hard on ourselves when we don't feel confident, when we're unsure of the path ahead or hesitant about our abilities. We tend to believe that our doubts are a sign that we're not good enough, not prepared enough, or that we somehow lack the qualities required to succeed. But uncertainty doesn't equal weakness. In fact, it takes incredible courage to step into the unknown without knowing exactly how things will turn out. It takes resilience to move forward when you don't have all the answers, and it takes vulnerability to admit that you don't have everything figured out. And that vulnerability is a sign of strength, not weakness. The truth is that confidence is not a permanent state of being. It's something that ebbs and flows. Sometimes we feel sure of ourselves and other times we don't. But feeling unsure or uncertain doesn't mean you're not capable. In fact, some of the most successful people in the world have been uncertain at some point in their journey. What sets them apart is not their certainty, but their willingness to keep going in spite of it. Confidence doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from the trust you build in yourself to navigate whatever comes your way, even when you don't have a clear map. When you embrace uncertainty, you open yourself up to learning. You allow room for mistakes, growth, and discovery. The fear of uncertainty often holds us back from taking risks or trying something new. We worry about failing, about looking foolish, about not being able to handle what comes next. But in reality, it's in those moments of uncertainty that we learn the most about ourselves. Every time we step into the unknown, we gain more clarity, more resilience, and more trust in our ability to figure things out along the way. Instead of fearing uncertainty, try to see it as an opportunity. An opportunity to experiment, to grow, to be curious. The discomfort you feel when you don't have all the answers is a signal that you're on the edge of something new, something that will push you out of your comfort zone and help you expand. It's in these moments that you discover your own inner strength, your ability to adapt, and your capacity to learn. And the more you embrace those moments of uncertainty, the more you'll realize that not having everything figured out is not a barrier, it's part of the process. You don't need to feel confident every step of the way. You don't need to have all the answers. What matters is that you keep showing up, that you keep trying, and that you trust yourself enough to keep moving forward, even when things are unclear. That's where real growth happens, when you keep moving in the face of uncertainty, and in doing so, find a confidence that's grounded not in perfection, but in the simple act of being willing to try. You don't have to be the strongest person in the room. You don't have to carry every burden on your own, and you don't have to prove your worth by being the one who handles everything. In fact, trying to do it all by yourself can be exhausting and isolating. It's easy to believe that in order to be successful or capable, you need to be the one who has all the answers, who doesn't ask for help, and who always appears in control. But the truth is, it takes strength to lean on others, to ask for support, and to recognize that you don't have to go through life alone. We often misunderstand strength. We equate it with self-sufficiency, with never showing weakness, and with always having a solution at hand. We see people around us, whether in our workplaces, families, or communities, and assume they've got it all together. We think they are more capable, more competent, and better equipped to handle challenges. We compare ourselves to others, thinking we should be more like them, more confident, more in control, more independent. But here's the truth: we all have our struggles, and no one has it completely figured out. The idea that you have to be the strongest one in the room, to be the one who's always on top of things, only adds unnecessary pressure. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help, it's a sign of courage. It's not a sign of inadequacy to admit you don't have all the answers, it's a sign of self-awareness. The reality is that none of us are meant to do this alone. Life is messy, and we all face challenges that are bigger than we can handle on our own. Whether it's a difficult project at work, a personal loss, or just the day-to-day stresses that seem to build up, we all reach a point where we need help. And when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough to ask for support, we often find that the people around us are more than willing to offer it. We're all interconnected, and the beauty of human relationships lies in our ability to share in both the burdens and the joys of life. When you let yourself rely on others, you open the door to deeper connections and stronger relationships. There's power in interdependence, not just in independence. It's a false narrative that we have to do everything on our own. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from recognizing that we need each other, that asking for help doesn't diminish our value, it enhances our humanity. Whether you're reaching out to a colleague for advice, leaning on a friend for emotional support, or asking a mentor for guidance, you're not showing weakness, you're demonstrating a willingness to grow, to learn, and to face challenges together. And in doing so, you invite others to show up for you too, which can create a network of support that is both empowering and enriching. Being strong doesn't mean having all the answers. It doesn't mean handling everything by yourself. It means recognizing that it's okay to be vulnerable, to share your struggles, and to rely on others when you need them. Strength lies not in the absence of vulnerability, but in the willingness to embrace it, knowing that you don't have to carry the weight of the world alone. When you let go of the need to be the strongest in the room, you open up space for real connection, for shared experiences, and for mutual support that can carry you through even the most challenging times. We often hear that vulnerability is something to avoid, that we should shield ourselves from being open or showing our weaknesses. We're told that the strong, successful people keep their emotions in check, never let their guard down, and always present a composed, polished version of themselves. Yet, when we look more closely, we begin to see that true strength lies not in hiding our vulnerability, but in embracing it. Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is a source of incredible power and connection. It's the courage to be seen, to take emotional risks, and to be open to the world and to others without the need for perfection. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. We associate it with failure, with exposure, with being judged or rejected. The fear of being vulnerable can keep us isolated as we try to maintain a facade of control or invulnerability. But what happens when we deny our vulnerability is that we also deny the fullness of our humanity. We miss the chance to connect with others on a deeper level, to experience the richness of authentic relationships, and to grow through the very struggles that make us human. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, whether it's in admitting that we're struggling, asking for help, or simply sharing something that's on our hearts, we invite others to do the same. We create space for honesty, understanding, and empathy. There's immense power in letting go of the need to be perfect, to always have it together, and to be unbreakable. When we embrace vulnerability, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. We stop living in fear of judgment or rejection and start living with a sense of acceptance for who we truly are. The people who are most impactful in our lives, whether they're friends, mentors, or colleagues, are often the ones who show up as their real, authentic selves. They don't hide behind walls of perfection. They share their fears, their struggles, their dreams, and their failures. And in doing so, they allow us to connect with them on a deeper level. Vulnerability fosters trust. It creates a space where both people can be honest and open without fear of judgment. It shows us that it's okay to not have all the answers, that it's okay to stumble, and that we don't have to perform in order to belong. In our personal lives, vulnerability is often what enables us to build deep, meaningful relationships. It allows us to move beyond surface-level interactions and create connections rooted in understanding and compassion. Whether you're sharing something that's difficult, opening up about your emotions, or being honest about your fears, vulnerability enables the kind of intimacy that is essential for true connection. It's the moments when we let our guard down, when we show our true selves flaws, fears, and all that others are most likely to relate to us. In these moments, we create space for others to be vulnerable too. And that shared openness is what builds trust and connection. Vulnerability also encourages growth. When we expose ourselves to the world, whether it's through our work, our relationships, or our personal journeys, we risk rejection, failure, and disappointment. But it is through these risks that we learn, evolve, and become more resilient. When we embrace vulnerability, we open ourselves to the lessons that come with being real, being imperfect, and being human. It is through vulnerability that we are able to cultivate courage, develop empathy, and experience the fullness of life. Without it, we may live safely, but we will also miss out on the opportunities to grow, connect, and experience the richness of living fully. The idea that we need to have all the answers can be one of the most paralyzing beliefs we hold. We think that in order to move forward, in order to succeed, we need to know exactly what we're doing, how it will turn out, and how to handle every potential obstacle. But life rarely works that way. In fact, the uncertainty is often where the magic happens. It's where we grow, where we learn, and where we find out who we really are. The truth is, you don't have to have everything figured out to take the next step. You don't need all the answers right now to begin moving toward what you want. We live in a culture that values certainty. We are taught that knowledge and control are signs of strength, that having everything mapped out makes us capable and competent. But this belief often leads to a sense of paralysis. We get stuck in a loop overthinking every decision, trying to predict every possible outcome, and ultimately delaying our progress because we're waiting for the perfect moment when we feel ready, when we feel like we have all the answers. The truth is, waiting for certainty can keep us stuck forever. There will always be unknowns, there will always be risks, and there will always be the possibility of failure. But those things are not reasons to wait, they are part of the journey. The reality is that growth happens in the gray areas, in the places where we don't know exactly what's coming next. It's in taking action despite the uncertainty that we learn and evolve. When we don't have all the answers, we are forced to trust ourselves, to take risks, and to lean into the discomfort of not knowing. This is where we stretch, where we develop resilience, and where we discover our capacity to handle what comes our way. No one has all the answers at the start of any journey. What matters is the willingness to begin, even without knowing exactly where it will lead. In fact, some of the most profound insights come from stepping into the unknown, from doing things that don't come with a guaranteed outcome. It's in the process of figuring things out, of making mistakes, and of course of failing, that we actually learn the most about ourselves. Every time we venture into something new without all the answers, we are given the opportunity to discover strengths we didn't know we had, to adapt in ways we didn't expect, and to find creative solutions to problems we never could have anticipated. So, the next time you feel the pressure to have it all figured out before you take the first step, remember this: you don't need all the answers. You don't need to have everything planned out. What matters is that you begin. What matters is that you take the next step, even if it's small, and trust that you will figure it out as you go. The process itself will guide you. Your growth will come not from knowing exactly where you're headed, but from being willing to trust yourself enough to begin, even when the path is unclear. The journey will unfold as it's meant to, and the answers you need will come when you're ready to meet them. You just have to be brave enough to take that first step, even in the face of uncertainty. Taking up space is often harder than it seems. We live in a world that encourages humility, where we're often taught to shrink, to make ourselves smaller, to fit into predefined boxes that are comfortable and acceptable to others. We're taught to stay modest, not to brag or draw too much attention to ourselves, because that might make us seem arrogant or self-centered. But the truth is, you have a right to take up space. You have a right to show up fully, to be present, to take your place in the room, no matter how big or small that room may be. We often feel like we need permission to take up space. We hold back, not because we don't have the skills, ideas, or talents to contribute, but because we fear the judgment of others. We worry that we'll be seen as too much, too loud, too ambitious. So we hide our opinions, dim our light, and minimize our accomplishments. We don't speak up in meetings, we don't raise our hands, we don't let our voices be heard, thinking that it's safer to stay small, to blend in, to not make waves. But in doing so, we are denying the world the full expression of who we are. We are shrinking back from the very things that make us unique, that make our voices valuable, and that allow us to connect with others in meaningful ways. Taking up space is not about being boastful or seeking attention for the sake of attention. It's about recognizing your worth, knowing that your presence matters, and understanding that you have a right to contribute to the world around you. It's about showing up authentically, without apology, and sharing your thoughts, ideas, and feelings with the world. When we allow ourselves to take up space, we give others permission to do the same. We create a ripple effect that encourages openness, authenticity, and connection. When we show up as ourselves fully, unapologetically, and without reservation, we invite others to do the same. We all benefit from the strength of our collective vulnerability, our collective presence, and our willingness to take up space in this world. Taking up space is also a way of honoring your own needs. When you take up space, you are acknowledging your own worth and asserting that you have a right to be seen and heard. It's easy to get caught up in the demands of others, their expectations, their needs, their desires, and forget about your own. But you can't pour from an empty cup. If you don't allow yourself to take up space, to assert your own needs, you risk losing sight of what truly matters to you. By showing up fully, by taking your place in the world, you not only honor yourself, but also give others permission to honor their own needs and voices as well. Sometimes taking up space means setting boundaries, saying no when you need to, and prioritizing your own well-being. It means not feeling guilty for claiming time, space, or resources for yourself. It means being unapologetically present regardless of how much room you take up, and trusting that your existence, your contributions, and your presence are valuable just as they are. Taking up space is about recognizing that you matter, just as you are. It's about understanding that your presence is not only valid but necessary. It's not selfish or arrogant to stand in your power. In fact, it's a gift to yourself and to the world. So don't apologize for taking up space. Don't shrink back to make others feel comfortable. Own your place in the room, and by doing so, you'll encourage others to do the same. One of the most powerful reminders we can give ourselves is that we are not alone. It's easy to feel isolated, especially when we're struggling or facing challenges. In those moments, it's easy to believe that everyone else has their life figured out, that they're handling things better than we are, and that we're the only ones dealing with pain, fear, or doubt. This feeling of isolation can deepen our struggles, making us feel like we're carrying our burdens alone. But the truth is, no matter how separate we may feel at times, we are all connected by the shared experience of being human. You are never truly alone in your struggles, your doubts, or your triumphs. When we acknowledge that we are not alone, we open the door to connection. It's easy to hide behind walls, to keep our struggles to ourselves, thinking that we should handle everything independently. But the reality is that we all face similar challenges at different times in our lives. Whether it's the pressure of work, the grief of loss, the uncertainty of change, or the desire to belong, the emotions and experiences we go through are shared by others. This doesn't make our struggles any less real, but it does help us realize that there are others who understand, others who can relate, and others who can walk with us, even if just for a short time. This sense of shared humanity is a powerful source of strength. When we allow ourselves to lean on others, whether it's a friend, family member, colleague, or even a stranger, we give ourselves permission to be vulnerable. We allow others to offer support, and in doing so, we break down the isolation that can make challenges feel even heavier. Reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength. It takes courage to open up, to show our true selves, and to allow others to witness our struggles and our growth. In the act of reaching out, we not only help ourselves, but we also create opportunities for others to do the same. We create a space for shared healing and mutual support. There's power in being seen and heard, in knowing that our experiences matter and that we don't have to go through them alone. We don't have to carry the weight of the world on our own shoulders. The simple act of connecting with others, of sharing our burdens, can be transformative. It lightens the load and reminds us that there are people who care, people who will listen, and people who will help us carry the weight. When we realize that we are not alone, we also begin to see the importance of community. Whether it's within our families, our friendships, our workplaces, or our places, or our broader networks, the relationships we build are a source of resilience and support. We are social beings meant to lean on one another, to offer help, and to receive it in return. In times of difficulty, these connections are the lifeline that can help us stay grounded and focused. And in times of joy, they allow us to celebrate more fully, knowing that our successes are even more meaningful when shared with others. So when life feels overwhelming or you feel like you're carrying too much, remember that you are not alone. Reach out, share your burdens, let others in, and allow them to support you. And know that, in return, you have the power to be there for others as well. Together, we are stronger. Together, we can face anything that comes our way. We often find ourselves waiting for the perfect moment, the right circumstances, or the ideal conditions before we take action. We think that if we just wait a little longer until we have more experience, more confidence, or the right opportunity, then we'll be ready to step forward. But here's the reality: there is no perfect moment. There is no magical time when everything will fall into place and all the stars will align. The truth is that the best time to act is now. The conditions may never be perfect, and if we wait for them to be, we may never take that first step. Waiting for perfection can be paralyzing. We become so fixated on getting everything just right that we hesitate to take any action at all. The fear of making a mistake, the fear of failing, and the fear of looking foolish can keep us stuck in a cycle of inaction. But the irony is that it's often through the act of doing, through stepping into the unknown, through trying something new that we learn, grow, and improve. Perfection is an illusion. There will always be mistakes, missteps, and things we could have done better. But that's where the growth happens. It's in the trying, in the learning, and in the adapting. Waiting for perfection keeps us stagnant while action moves us forward. The truth is that you don't need to know everything before you begin. You don't need to have it all figured out. Often, the act of starting is what provides clarity. The first step, no matter how small, leads to the next, and the next, until you realize that you are capable of navigating challenges as they come. Action teaches you things you can't learn by just thinking about it or planning for it. It's in the doing that you begin to discover your strengths, your resilience, and your ability to handle whatever comes your way. In fact, some of the most successful people have failed countless times along the way. They didn't wait for the perfect conditions. They didn't wait until they were ready in the traditional sense. They simply took the first step, then kept moving forward, learning from their failures, adjusting their approach, and continuing on the path, no matter how uncertain it seemed. It's not about getting everything right the first time, it's about starting and being willing to course correct along the way. Perfection is not a destination, it's a myth. What matters is progress. Another important factor to recognize is that we're often our own biggest obstacle. Our inner critic, the voice that tells us we're not good enough, not ready enough, or not prepared enough, can be louder than any external factor. But that voice is not the truth. The truth is that you are capable of far more than you think. You don't need to wait until you feel perfectly ready. You don't need to silence the doubts entirely, just take the step anyway. You'll be amazed at how much you can learn and accomplish when you give yourself permission to take action, even if it's messy or imperfect. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment, start where you are. Take action with the knowledge that you don't have to have everything figured out right now. The path will unfold as you move forward, and each step will bring new lessons, opportunities, and growth. You are ready right now. The perfect moment is always the one you create by taking that first step. We often underestimate the power of kindness, both toward others and toward ourselves. In a world that emphasizes productivity, achievement, and success, it's easy to forget that kindness is not just a soft or optional trait. It's a force that has the power to transform our lives and the lives of those around us. Kindness doesn't just make the world a better place, it makes us better people. It's not just something we give, it's something we receive. It's a practice that creates connection, heals wounds, and nurtures resilience. At times, we tend to believe that we need to be tough or strong in order to succeed. We think that kindness is a sign of weakness, that we need to be more competitive, more ambitious, and more driven to get ahead. But the truth is, kindness doesn't make us weak, it makes us human. It builds trust, encourages collaboration, and fosters empathy. It creates an environment where people feel safe, valued, and respected. When we lead with kindness, we invite others to do the same. And in doing so, we create stronger, more compassionate relationships, whether in our personal lives, at work, or in our communities. The power of kindness is not only seen in how we treat others, but also in how we treat ourselves. So often, we are our own harshest critics, believing that if we are too kind to ourselves, we will become complacent or lazy. We believe that only by pushing ourselves relentlessly can we achieve our goals, but in reality, the opposite is true. Self-compassion is the foundation of growth. When we are kind to ourselves, we give ourselves permission to make mistakes, to learn from them, and to continue moving forward without self-punishment. This doesn't mean allowing ourselves to be complacent. It means acknowledging that we are imperfect, that we will stumble, and that it's okay. We are all worthy of love and kindness, including from ourselves. When we offer ourselves kindness, we create the mental and emotional space needed for resilience and growth. Kindness can also help break down barriers. It's easy to let misunderstandings, differences in opinion, or past hurts create division between people. But kindness has the power to bridge those gaps. A kind word, a compassionate gesture, or simply offering a listening ear can heal old wounds, build trust, and foster understanding. In moments of conflict or tension, kindness can be a powerful antidote to division. It doesn't mean we always agree, but it means we are willing to listen, to see the humanity in others, and to offer empathy, even when we don't fully understand or agree with their perspective. Kindness can also be a quiet strength. It doesn't always need to be loud or overt. Sometimes the most powerful acts of kindness are small, subtle, and consistent. It could be holding the door open for someone, offering a genuine compliment, or taking a moment to check in on someone who's having a tough day. These seemingly small gestures can create ripples that have a far greater impact than we realize. It's these everyday acts of kindness that accumulate over time and create a culture of care, respect, and support. Ultimately, kindness is about recognizing that we are all in this together. We all have our struggles, our doubts, and our fears. By extending kindness to others and to ourselves, we create a space where vulnerability, empathy, and connection can thrive. We begin to understand that the real strength in life comes not from striving for perfection or from pushing others down to rise above them, but from lifting each other up, from offering compassion in times of need, and from being generous with our hearts. The world could always use more kindness, and it starts with each of us, both in how we treat others and in how we treat ourselves. As we reflect on the journey of these key insights, one thing becomes clear: the way we approach our days, our challenges, and our relationships shapes our lives in profound ways. It's not about waiting for perfection, trying to do it all on our own, or hiding our true selves out of fear or doubt. True strength lies in embracing vulnerability, acknowledging that we don't need all the answers, and allowing ourselves to take up space in the world unapologetically. It's in being kind both to ourselves and others, and recognizing that connection and empathy are the real forces that bind us together. We don't have to have it all figured out right now. What matters is that we show up, even in the uncertainty, and take that first step forward. When we lean into our shared humanity, allow ourselves to be vulnerable, and take actions rooted in kindness, we begin to unlock the best parts of ourselves. We create space for growth, for connection, and for the possibility of transformation. So as you start your day, remember this: you are capable, you are worthy, and you are not alone. Embrace the messy, the imperfect, and the uncertain, because that's where life happens. Take that step, show up, and trust that you are enough just as you are. Pause before you start. Take a moment before diving into the busyness of your day to reflect and center yourself. You are enough. Remind yourself that you don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You are enough as you are. Embrace imperfection. Recognize that it's okay to feel uncertain or afraid. Imperfection is part of being human. Authenticity over perfection. Don't hide who you are to fit an image of perfection. Your authenticity is your strength. Vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It connects you to others and fosters courage. You don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to be uncertain or not have everything figured out. Just keep moving forward. Take up space. Give yourself permission to be present and visible. Your voice, your feelings, and your presence matter. You're not alone. You don't have to carry everything on your own. There is strength in connection and in reaching out to others. Real courage is showing up as yourself, even in discomfort, is where true courage lies. Live fully, not perfectly. The goal is not perfection, but to live wholeheartedly, embracing the full range of emotions and experiences that make you human. These keynotes reflect the themes of vulnerability, courage, and authenticity that encourage living a more meaningful, connected life. Thank you